You don't belong here. You're not even real family, you were adopted. Those words dropped like shards of glass across the dinner table. My sister, Michelle, didn't flinch when she said them. She stared straight into my eyes, daring me to react. We were at our late mother's house, her house now, apparently, celebrating what was supposed to be a simple family brunch. The smell of cinnamon rolls lingered in the air. Sunshine spilled in through the curtains. Laughter had been echoing just moments ago. I froze. My hands trembled around the coffee mug I was holding. The warmth that once comforted me now felt hollow. I looked around the table. No one said anything. Not Dad. Not even my cousin Lila. Just silence. Michelle smirked and took another bite of her croissant. And in that moment, I decided I wouldn't fight her. I'd take everything back silently. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 33, and I've always been the quiet one. The dependable one. The one who didn't rock the boat. I work as a pediatric nurse at a children's hospital in Richmond, Virginia. I've spent the last decade comforting crying kids, calming panicked parents, and working long overnight shifts that left me drained but fulfilled. I didn't have the luxury of drama in my life, so I kept things simple. Or tried to. Michelle, my older sister by 2 years, was always the opposite of me. Loud. Glamorous. Always surrounded by people who laughed too hard at her jokes, even when they weren't funny. Growing up, she was the one Mom and Dad beamed at during school recitals, while I stood a few feet behind, clutching my clarinet, waiting for someone to notice I'd won an award too. But I never hated her. I just accepted my place as the shadow in the room. Quiet but steady. Invisible but reliable. The house, our mother's house, was the only place I ever felt grounded. It was a 2-story brick home with green shutters, a wraparound porch, and hydrangeas my mom lovingly pruned every spring. It had this smell, lavender and something warm, like old books and cinnamon. I practically grew up in that kitchen, baking banana bread with Grandma June and doing homework on the counter while Mom prepped dinner. That house raised me. So when Mom got sick, it was me who came back home. Michelle was too busy with her interior design clients in Atlanta. I took a leave of absence from the hospital, packed a bag, and moved back in. I bathed Mom when she was too weak to get out of bed, fed her spoonfuls of soup, managed her medications, and held her hand when the pain got unbearable. She passed away in that house. In my arms. On a rainy Thursday morning. I still remember the way she looked at me in her final moments. She didn't say anything. Her voice was gone by then, but her eyes said it all. Thank you. I see you. I love you. After the funeral, Michelle swept back in like a hurricane. She showed up in a black designer dress and oversized sunglasses, hugging people at the service like a grieving celebrity. That was the first time I noticed something strange. While I was in the kitchen cleaning up platters from the wake, I saw her whispering with our father. Her face was calm, too calm, and she kept tapping on a folder she held in her hand. When I asked what it was, she laughed it off. Just boring estate paperwork. I didn't push. I never pushed. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need anything. I had memories, and I had peace. But what I didn't realize was that peace was about to be stolen from me. Weeks later, I returned to my small apartment near the hospital and tried to resume my routine. But something inside me felt hollow. I missed the house. I missed the quiet mornings with coffee on the porch. I missed Mom. Then Michelle called me one afternoon. Hey, she said casually, like she hadn't disappeared for months while I cared for our dying mother. I just wanted you to know I'm moving into the house. I'm getting the floors redone and repainting the kitchen. That green had to go. I blinked. Wait, you're moving in? Yeah, she said. Mom left it to me. Didn't Dad tell you? The words hit me like a cold slap. No, he didn't. Oh, well, I'm sure it's hard for you, but that's just how it is. I'll send you some pictures when the renovations are done. And that was it. No apology. No explanation. No mention of my year-long sacrifice, of the nights I spent crying beside Mom's bed. I called Dad later that night. His voice was tired. Your mom wanted to avoid conflict, Rachel. Michelle's name was added to the deed years ago. She wanted you both to have something, but Michelle made it clear she needed a place. You've got your job, your life. I swallowed hard. So, I was just the caretaker? She didn't mean it like that, he said, but the words didn't soothe me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I walked around my tiny apartment, staring at the same furniture I'd had since college. I looked at a photo of Mom on my bookshelf, her in that same kitchen, laughing while holding a mixing bowl. That house was mine in every way that mattered. Not because of a piece of paper, but because I gave it love when no one else did. But Michelle saw it as just another asset. Another trophy. I remembered something my Grandma June used to say. Some things in life are earned with love, not claimed by blood. I started digging through old boxes Mom had packed away in storage. I remembered she once told me, "There's a folder you'll need if anything ever happens to me." She hadn't been specific. 3 days later, I found it in a storage container at a unit near Mechanicsville. It was buried under some of my baby clothes and old tax documents. The folder was thick, yellowed, and tied with string. Inside were copies of updated wills, notes from an attorney, and something else, a letter. Rachel, if you're reading this, then I've passed. Please know that you were never second in my heart. This home is yours. I know Michelle will fight for it, but I trust you'll do what's right. You were my peace, my caretaker, my daughter in every sense of the word. There is a revised deed. It's official, dated, signed. I kept it hidden to avoid conflict, but now, if you choose, it's yours. Love, Mom. My hands shook as I read those words. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't adopted. I was her daughter. And suddenly my silence didn't feel like strength anymore. It felt like surrender. So I made a decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't scream. I'd just show Michelle exactly who I was. It had been 3 months since Michelle moved into the house. She posted pictures on Instagram regularly, boasting about reviving the spirit of our childhood home with beige walls and gold accents. She changed the name of the Wi-Fi to Michelle's Manor and hosted wine parties in the living room where Mom used to knit in silence. I try not to look, but I always did. Every time she posted, it felt like watching a stranger bulldoze my past. I stayed quiet, focused, and I planned. The first step was speaking to an attorney. I found a local firm that specialized in estate disputes, Howard, Fields, and Monroe. I met with a woman named Catherine Monroe, a sharp, no-nonsense professional with silver hair and glasses she wore on a gold chain. She flipped through the folder I brought, her expression unreadable. When she finally looked up, she said, "Rachel, I hope you know, this document is airtight." I blinked. "It is." She nodded. "Your mother filed this revision with the county registrar 5 months before her passing. You are the legal sole owner of the property. Your sister's name doesn't appear on any official deed. That older version, what your father mentioned, is invalid." I sat back, breathless. Catherine continued, "We can proceed in one of 2 ways. Quietly, with a formal notice of eviction, or, if you prefer to offer a private meeting first, that's your call." I thought about it. About Michelle's smirk when she said, "Mom left it to me." About the way the family looked at me like I was invisible. About how no one had asked me how I was holding up after Mom died. I chose the meeting, but not at her house. Not yet. Instead, I invited Michelle to a neutral location, the Green Peony Cafe. It was where Mom used to take us as girls for peppermint hot chocolate. The place had barely changed, still full of green tiles and floral chairs, with a mural of peonies stretching across the back wall. Michelle arrived late, of course. She walked in wearing oversized sunglasses and heels too tall for comfort. She barely glanced at me before pulling her chair out and sighing dramatically. "So, what's this about? If you're here to ask me to give you a room in the house, the answer is no." I didn't smile. "No, that's not why I asked you here." I reached into my bag and slowly pulled out the folder. The same yellowed one with Mom's handwriting. Michelle rolled her eyes. "More of Mom's old paperwork?" "Rachel, seriously." "Actually," I interrupted, sliding the documents across the table, You might want to take a look at this before we continue. She hesitated but opened it. At first, she scanned lazily. Then her eyes widened. What is this? She asked, her voice already defensive. It's Mom's revised will. And the updated deed. Filed legally. Witnessed. Notarized. You're lying. I'm not. She flipped through the pages faster now, looking for a loophole. Her lip twitched. Why wouldn't Dad know about this? Because Mom didn't want to deal with the fight she knew you'd cause. She trusted me to decide when the time was right. Michelle slammed the folder shut. This can't be real. It is. I stayed calm. Steady. Just like I'd practiced in front of a mirror. I spoke to an attorney. A real one. She verified everything. That house. It's mine, not yours. Michelle stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back slightly. People turned to look. You're doing this for revenge, she hissed. You've always been jealous. I raised an eyebrow. Jealous of what? You disappearing while I took care of Mom alone? You claiming a house you didn't lift a finger to maintain? You lying to the entire family about what Mom wanted? She was breathing hard now. Do you really think they'll believe you? She asked. You've always been so passive. So forgettable. I leaned in slowly. Not anymore. That silenced her. The next morning, my lawyer delivered the official 30-day eviction notice to the house. What followed was chaos. Michelle tried to call me 17 times. Left voicemail after voicemail, ranging from sobbing apologies to shouting threats. Then she got Dad involved. He called me that evening. Rachel, is this necessary? I gave her a choice. She made hers. She's your sister. She's the one who said, I wasn't real family, remember? He paused. For once, he had no answer. A few days later, Michelle posted on social media that she was being unfairly attacked by her own family. She framed herself as the victim, claiming she was being kicked out of her inheritance by a jealous sibling. She didn't use my name, but everyone knew who she meant. I didn't respond. Instead, I got the locks changed the day after the notice period expired. Michelle had already packed most of her things by then, leaving behind only a few broken decorations and a wine stain on the carpet. I walked through the house in silence, each step echoing on the hardwood floors. In the living room, I found something unexpected, a shoebox on the coffee table, labeled in Mom's handwriting. For Rachel. Inside were Polaroids of us as children. One in particular caught my breath. I was around 6, holding a bowl of cookie dough with Mom's arms around me from behind. We were both laughing. On the back, she had written, she never needed a title to be my daughter. She just was. I sat down right there on the rug and cried for the first time in months. Not because I was angry, because I was seen. The next time I saw Michelle, it was in court. She tried to contest the documents, but the judge didn't even let it get far. After verifying the legal timestamp, the county seal, and hearing from Catherine, the ruling was clear. The property legally belongs to Ms. Rachel Morgan. Case dismissed. Michelle didn't look at me on her way out. I didn't expect her to. But deep inside, I knew that this quiet reclaiming, was the justice I'd never thought I'd have. I thought the court ruling would be the end of it. That once the papers were signed and the keys were back in my hands, Michelle would move on. That she'd go back to whatever world she lived in, full of filters, false friends, and half-baked apologies. But I was wrong. Taking back the house wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. A week after the ruling, I was pulling into the driveway with groceries when I saw him. Dad, sitting on the porch like he owned the place. He stood up slowly, leaning on his cane. You got a minute? He asked. I hesitated. For what? He didn't answer, just followed me inside. I put the bags down in the kitchen and crossed my arms. I'm not here to fight, he said. Just trying to understand why you're doing this. I almost laughed. Doing what? Honoring Mom's last wishes? Taking back what was rightfully mine. He sighed. It just seems cruel. You know your sister's struggling. She's been through a lot. And I haven't. He looked away. Dad, she told people I was adopted. She humiliated me at Mom's funeral. She stole the house and lied to the entire family. Why is it that I need to be the one who forgives everything? Why do I always have to be the bigger person? He looked up slowly, guilt flickering in his eyes. Because you're the only one strong enough to be. That hit harder than I expected. But I didn't let it show. I'm not asking for your blessing, I said. I'm asking for your silence. If you can't support me, then stay out of it. He nodded, quietly. And then he left. But Michelle didn't stay quiet. The day after, I found flyers scattered across the neighborhood, each one printed with a blown-up screenshot of her social media post, with captions like, "Thrown out by my own blood," and "When sisters turn cold." She handed them to neighbors, even left one at the local community board by the park. I walked past one woman who looked at me like I was a criminal. The betrayal burned, but I stayed grounded. I responded by planting roses in Mom's old garden, by repainting the mailbox, by fixing the cracked front step. One neighbor, Miss Carmela, stopped by as I was repainting the fence. "You know," she said, "your mom would have been proud of you." I smiled faintly. Not everyone agrees. She tapped her cane and shrugged. Some people only see what they want to. You see what needs to be done, and do it anyway. That small moment meant more than I could say. Still, Michelle kept pushing. She sent emails to my job claiming I was mentally unstable. She told our extended cousins that I forged Mom's documents. She even showed up at Aunt Lisa's house, crying, begging her to side with her. But Lisa surprised me. She called me that night. "Rachel," she came by. She was a mess. But I want you to know, I didn't buy into it. My throat tightened. "You didn't?"
No.
"Because I remember who was there every Sunday. I remember who brought your mom's soup when she was too tired to cook. I remember who carried her through chemo and sat beside her in the hospital."
She paused.
"It was you. Always you." Tears filled my eyes. Not from pain, but from being seen. Michelle wasn't used to that.
To people choosing me.
To people remembering what I had given up for a family that had never once paused to give back.
She didn't stop, though.
2 weeks later, she showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door slowly. She looked different. Exhausted, hair messy, mascara smudged like she hadn't slept in days. "I need to come inside," she said. "I don't think that's a good idea."
"Please."
"Just 5 minutes." I let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands. "You've won, okay?" she said. "You got what you wanted. But can we at least talk like sisters again?" I stayed quiet. She sniffed, eyes glassy. "I was scared, Rachel. I felt like everything was slipping away. And when Mom died, it felt like I had nothing left. You were always the one she leaned on. I felt invisible. And I hated you for it." It was the first honest thing she'd said in years. I didn't steal the house out of spite. I was trying to feel like I mattered. I walked over slowly and sat across from her. "You always mattered, Michelle," I said. "You just never wanted to matter for the right reasons." She blinked. "I don't hate you," I continued. "But I don't trust you either. And trust, that's not something you get back with tears." She nodded, slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I believe you," I said. "But sorry doesn't undo the damage." There was silence. Long and heavy. I stood up. "You'll always be part of my story, Michelle. But you don't get to write it anymore."
She didn't argue.
Didn't cry again. She just got up and left. I closed the door softly behind her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel weak for doing so. In the weeks that followed, things began to settle. Michelle moved into a shared apartment with 2 other girls on the outskirts of town. Word got around that she was working part-time at a boutique downtown. Every so often, someone would ask if we were talking again. I always answered honestly, "Not yet." I was rebuilding. My house. My peace. My sense of self. One day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. An old one. Me, Michelle, and Mom on the front porch, arms around each other. On the back, someone had written, she was proud of both her girls, even when we didn't deserve it. There was no signature.
Just that.
And I smiled. Because healing isn't a finish line. It's a quiet choice you make over and over, especially when it's hard. A month passed. The silence between Michelle and me remained, but it was no longer cruel. It was simply quiet.
Space.
Breathing room we both needed. I didn't block her. I didn't stalk her socials. I didn't even ask Aunt Lisa how she was doing. I just focused on the house, on rebuilding it, and in many ways rebuilding me. I started my mornings with tea on the porch. I pulled weeds from the rose beds and added wind chimes that clinked softly in the breeze. There was a strange peace in the routine. One afternoon, I was clearing out the attic when I stumbled upon a box labeled in Mom's handwriting, "To Rachel, for when it's time." I sat cross-legged, heart pounding as I opened it. Inside were yellowed notebooks, faded photos, and a small velvet pouch with a locket I'd never seen before. On the back was engraved, "You were never second best, Mom." Tears welled up. I clutched it to my chest and let myself cry, really cry, not from betrayal or grief, but from release. From knowing that even in her final days, Mom saw me, loved me, trusted me to walk through this fire and come out stronger. At the bottom of the box was a letter, handwritten. "Rachel, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've had to carry more than you should. I want you to remember something. Forgiveness isn't weakness, but giving it too early is. Take your time. Set your boundaries. Choose love, but don't beg for it. You are enough. You always were." It was like she had written it yesterday. Like she knew what Michelle would try. Like she had faith in who I would become, even when others didn't. That night, I made a decision. I called my lawyer and asked him to draw up a rental agreement for Michelle. Fair market value, month-to-month terms. The catch? She could only rent one of the spare units in the back, not the main house. No drama. No shortcuts. No special privileges. The next day, I emailed it to her with a short note. "If you're willing to rebuild, it starts here. The rest is up to you." She didn't reply right away. In fact, I didn't hear from her for over 2 weeks. Then, one Sunday morning, there was a knock on the door. Michelle stood there, plain clothes, no makeup, hair in a low ponytail. Humble.
Tired. Real.
"I signed it," she said, holding up the contract. I nodded. "Good. I don't expect things to go back to how they were." "They won't." She blinked but didn't flinch. "I'm okay with earning back whatever's left." There was a long pause. Then I stepped aside. "Come on in." We sat at the kitchen table, Mom's table, the same one Michelle once claimed like a throne. But this time, there was no crown on her head. No bitterness in her words. "I've been going to therapy," she said quietly, "trying to understand why I do what I do." I sipped my tea. "That's good." She pulled something from her bag. It was a photo, the one of the three of us on the porch. She'd had it framed. No fancy borders. Just wood. Simple and soft. I thought maybe it could go back here. She pointed to the wall above the kitchen entryway. I took the frame, looked at it, then nodded.
"Yeah.
That feels right." She stood on the chair and hung it herself. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel resentment when I looked at her. I saw someone trying. Someone who had broken things, and now wanted to rebuild, even if it took the rest of her life. Later that week, Aunt Lisa invited us both over for dinner. "I want no drama," she warned us both with a wagging spoon. "You act up, you're washing dishes."
Michelle laughed, genuinely.
I smiled. And for once, the room didn't feel divided. Over spaghetti and garlic bread, Michelle shared that she'd gotten promoted at work. She was managing inventory, even training new hires. "Didn't think I'd be the responsible one," she joked. I raised a brow. Still debatable. We laughed. After dinner, Lisa pulled me aside in the hallway. "You did a brave thing," she said, giving her a chance. "I didn't do it for her," I said. "I did it for me. So, I could stop carrying that weight." She smiled, proud. "I think your mom would have done the same." That night, I slept with the window open. The house smelled like jasmine and old wood and fresh paint. It smelled like home. Not because of the walls or the porch or the attic full of memories, but because I had finally taken ownership of my life. A few weeks later, I volunteered at a local women's shelter. I shared my story, not the full legal drama, but pieces of it. About growing up overlooked, about finding my voice, about learning that sometimes family has to be redefined, not reclaimed. One young woman pulled me aside after the talk. "How did you do it?" she asked. "How did you stop being angry?" I paused. "I didn't," I said honestly. "I just decided not to let the anger make my decisions anymore." She nodded, eyes wide, soaking it in. That was the moment I realized. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a map for someone else. Not of revenge, but of reclamation. Of choosing peace without losing power. Of setting boundaries without building walls so high no one could ever climb over. Michelle still lived in the back unit. We didn't talk every day. But sometimes, I'd come home to a pie on the porch. A card slipped under the door. A quiet gesture. Her way of saying she remembered. That she was trying. And that was enough. Not because she changed overnight, but because I had. Because I had grown roots so deep, no storm she created could rip me out of my own life again. 6 months later, the house was no longer just a house. It was alive again. The porch had new white railing. Flower beds bloomed with tulips and lavender. The front door, once dull and creaky, had been repainted in a warm marigold yellow, a shade I chose intentionally.
Bright.
Unexpected. Softly defiant. The community had started to notice, too. Mrs. Bowers from 3 doors down dropped off a tray of lemon bars and said, "You've brought life back to this block, honey." Even strangers walking by would slow down just to admire the new wind chimes, the hanging fern baskets, the little library box I'd set up near the sidewalk. But the real transformation wasn't just in the walls or wood or garden. It was inside. Inside me. Inside the rhythm of my days. Inside the relationships that had quietly begun to heal. I had started a small interior consultation business, just local for now, but I had clients who wanted their spaces to feel like them again, and somehow I had become the person to help them do that. Funny how fixing your own brokenness can teach you how to guide others through theirs. One of my first clients was Lisa's friend, Trina, who had just left a 20-year marriage and was terrified to decorate her first apartment. "You want it to look like you're proud of your space," I told her. "Even if you're still figuring out who you are in it." She teared up and said, "That's exactly it." And I knew then I wasn't just offering color palettes or lamp suggestions. I was offering hope. Michelle had continued renting the back unit. She always paid on time. Quiet, respectful, present, but not invasive. Sometimes she brought groceries and left a few things on the porch with a sticky note. Found her favorite brand of hot cocoa. Other times, she'd text short messages like, "Heard you nailed that presentation. Lisa bragged for you.
Congrats."
It was strange, watching her become gentle. Not perfect.
Not saintly.
But real. One chilly November afternoon, we both found ourselves in the backyard, raking leaves in silence. Then she broke it. "Do you think Mom ever saw us ending up like this?" I paused. Maybe she hoped. Michelle leaned on her rake. "I used to think love meant being chosen first, that I had to compete." I didn't say anything. I let the wind carry her truth for a moment. But now I think it's about showing up even when you're not the favorite. Even when you've messed up. I nodded slowly. "That's growth," I said. "That's love without conditions." We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just kept raking. And that was enough. In January, I hosted my first community dinner night. Free plates for anyone who walked in. Good music. Soft lighting. A space to just belong. Aunt Lisa came, of course, proudly wearing an apron that said, "Still the boss." Michelle brought homemade bread. Even Trina and her new partner showed up. But what surprised me most? The turnout. Neighbors I barely knew. A teenager who lived 2 blocks away and said she felt safe in the space. An elderly man who whispered, "This feels like family." That night, as the music played and laughter floated through the air, I stood in the kitchen and watched the room glow. I thought about Mom. I thought about her letter. Choose love, but don't beg for it. You are enough. She had left me a house. But more than that, she had left me a chance. A chance to reclaim my story. Not as the forgotten daughter. Not as the second best. But as the woman who stood tall on uneven ground and built her own foundation. Later, when I climbed into bed, I reached for the locket she had left me. Worn and warm from months of being held close. I opened it and added something inside, a tiny slip of paper that read, "Thank you for choosing me, even when others didn't." That night, I dreamed of a porch filled with sunlight and voices. And I knew the story had changed. Not because Michelle apologized. Not because the world suddenly became fair. But because I had stopped waiting for closure and started creating continuation. 3 weeks later, Michelle knocked on my door again. "I want to buy a house," she said, nervous but steady. Yeah. Not because I want to leave, but because I want to grow. On my own terms. I smiled. That sounds exactly right. She hesitated. But I'd still like to help out with the dinner nights. And maybe paint the community fence. I nodded. She wasn't running. She was rising. Like me. By April, the house had become more than a structure. It was a sanctuary. For stories. For healing. For new beginnings. We started a little garden out front labeled Second Chances. Kids from the neighborhood helped plant basil and sunflowers. Elderly neighbors donated ceramic pots. Lisa said, "You turned a family war zone into a haven. Your mama would be so proud." I believed her. I felt her. Especially on mornings when the wind chimes sang for no reason at all. Or when I caught Michelle pausing by Mom's old garden patch, just standing there in thought, like she was saying a silent thank you. One summer evening, after a long day of consultations and errands, I sat on the porch with a cup of mint tea. The sun was setting, bathing the house in soft gold. The Second Chances garden was blooming. The community board was filled with flyers, book club meetups, potluck plans, yoga in the yard. Music floated gently from someone's open window. The neighborhood was alive. I closed my eyes and breathed in the scent of jasmine, paint, and soil. And I whispered to myself, "I took the house she lives in. But what I really took back was myself." And I smiled. Because that was the real inheritance.